Alright, hello, welcome to Punk Math today. Changed it up a little bit. Some punk instead of metal. Okay, today's lesson is called Compare Decimals. Alright, so let me get the book. And we're doing our lesson 9.7 called Compare Decimals. Essential question, how can you compare decimals? Okay, there's a couple of different ways. We've compared things before in the past this year. So we're going to pretty much do it the same way. We can use models, we can use number lines, all different strategies. They all work. Okay, here's our problem. The city park covers 64 hundredths of a square mile. About 18 hundredths of the park is covered by water, and about 2/10 of the park is covered by paved walkways. Is more of the park covered by water or paved walkways? Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to use models. By the way, this is page number 533 in our Go Math book, which you can access in the student edition on Think Central. Okay, we're going to do a model first. We're comparing hundredths to tenths. So we're going to use two different models. One is going to represent hundredths, one is going to represent tenths, and we're going to fill them out accordingly. The first one is going to be hundredths, so there's going to be 100 little units. There's going to be 18 of them because it's 18 hundredths. So we're going to shade in 18 hundredths for the first model. Second model is going to represent 2/10. In this case, we're only going to have 10 sections of our model. And we're going to shade in 2 of the 10, representing 2/10. Okay? That's the first way we're going to do it. The second way we're going to do it is we're going to use a number line. And we're going to start our number line at 0.0. We're going to extend it up to 50 hundredths, or 0.50. Okay. Then we're going to plot our 2 points. We're going to do 18 hundredths, and we are going to do 20 hundredths on our number line. Now, if we want to know which one is larger, the plot that's farther away from 0 is the larger number. Therefore, the plot that's closer to 0 is the smaller of the two numbers, and we're going to use our less than, greater than, or equal sign to do this problem. Okay, I'm going to show it to you on the board right now so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay, here we go. First, we're going to use the model method. Okay, there we go. The first model, if you notice, shows 2/10. We've shaded 2/10. Actually, that's the second model. It's backwards for me on this screen. Shows 2/10. And the first model shows 18 hundredths. Notice the difference in the models. The hundredths has 100 little units. The tenths only has 10. So if we do 18 hundredths, we're going to shade in 18 of the little boxes, and we did that in red. Then we're going to go next to it, and we're going to do the 2/10, and we're going to shade the first 2 columns, okay? The first 2 rows, actually. And if you notice, just by looking at the 2, where is there more red ink? 2/10 is obviously larger than 18 hundredths. Okay? That's the first way, using a model. Now you can use the number line also. Notice our number line starts at 0.0, goes up to 0.50, which is 50 hundredths, and I've plotted the 2 points for you. One is at 20 hundredths, or 2/10, and the other one is at 18 hundredths. Which one is closer to 0? If you notice, the 18 hundredths is closer to 0 than the 2/10 or 20 hundredths would be, showing us once again that 18 hundredths is less than 2/10, which is the equivalent to 20 hundredths. Okay, so that's the unlock the problem. And at the bottom of the page, it says 18 hundredths is less than 2/10 or hundredths. Okay, and there are 2 different ways we could figure that out. Okay, now on the next page, page 534, we're going to do a different example here where you can use a model or you can use place value. Okay, here's the example. Tim has 5/10 of a dollar. Sienna has 5 hundredths of a dollar. And the question is, who has more money? Once again, we're going to use a model. One is going to show tenths, which is Tim, and we're going to shade 5 columns representing 5 tenths. Then we're going to go over to Sienna's model. Her model shows hundredths, and we're only going to shade 5 hundredths. And then we're going to compare the two models. Also, you can record the information on a place value chart. You have 0.5 and you have 0.05. I'm going to show you the model on the board behind me, the place value chart. The main thing to remember, keep the columns and the decimals lined up. So you're going to have your ones, 2 zeros, then your decimal point, then comes the tenths column. We're going to put 5 tenths for Tim, no tenths for Sienna, because she only has 5 hundredths. She doesn't have any tenths. Then we're going to go to the hundredths place value. Since Tim has 5 tenths, we're not going to put anything in the hundredths. But we could put a 0 if we want to. If there's nothing there or a 0, it's virtually the same thing. You just say it differently. If it's 0.5, you say 5 tenths. If it's 0.50, you now say 50 hundredths. For Sienna, we're going to put a 0, decimal point, and then a 0.5. And we're going to look at both of these now, the model and the place value chart, to determine who has more money. Okay? Here we go. Now we're in green. And if you look, there are the two models. Tim has 5 tenths. Notice half of his model is colored in green. Sienna only has 5 hundredths, only 5 little blocks. But if we compare the two models, obviously Tim's has a lot more green than Sienna's does. Therefore, Tim has the larger quantity. Underneath, we have our place value chart. Notice under the ones, both have zeros. Then our decimal point. Now we know Tim has 5 tenths, so we put 5 in the tenths column. Sienna has no tenths because she only has 5 hundredths, so a 0 goes in her tenths. For hundredths, we leave Tim blank, but we could put a 0. And for Sienna, we put a 5. And when you look at those two numbers, obviously 5 tenths is greater than 5 hundredths. Okay? And there are two other ways that you can compare decimals. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you. Models, number lines, place value charts, they all work when you want to compare. Little hints to remember, when you're comparing them using the place value chart, keep your decimals lined up, keep your place values lined up, keep the ones on top of the ones, the tenths on top of the tenths, and so on. And you can't go wrong. Okay? Hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll have another one pretty soon. All right, see ya.